Good morning, students. Can you able to see the PPT screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Any doubt in the previous class portion?
No, ma'am.
Okay, shall we proceed? I think today onwards you have offline classes. In our classroom also we have 4 students. When you people are going to come?
After examinations, ma'am.
Hmm?
After examinations.
After exams means which date?
Second cycle exam.
Huh?
Second cycle exam.
Yeah, can you specify the dates?
The second cycle will start next month, middle month.
So after second cycle you have Hello India, no?
April 18th onwards, ma'am. Hello India.
Okay, you decide. Okay, our subject is Advanced Database Management System. Module 1 is Object Database Systems. Mute. Mute. Okay, our first module is Object Database Systems. So here we are going to discuss about how to create and how to manage object-based databases. Say already you might have studied tables where we can store atomic elements. Say the tables may contain rows and columns. We'll call entities and tuples. So each column, each row, 1, 1 will represent some data. The data will be atomic in nature. So it means that it may be an unique data with a single, not a complex data type. A small, maybe numeric or variable type or a floating point type or hexadecimal type. But in those normal database systems, we cannot store objects. What is object? Can anybody explain? What is object? I think you might have studied object-oriented languages like C++, Java. Yeah, tell me.
A real world entity.
Yeah, and real world entity. What are the components or elements of an object or a class? An object is represents a real world entity. So any real world entity will have its own attributes or characteristics. Along with the attributes, it will have its own special functions. So attributes in the sense maybe name of the real world entity and which type it belongs to, what are the current values, what is height, weight, all those things. Say for example, if you take a real world entity, you take the chalk piece. We are using chalk piece to write on the board now. So the chalk piece will have its own color, type, size of the and what is the material it is made up of. So like that, it will have its own abstract details, or we will call it as the attributes. And along with the attributes, we can make use of the chalk piece to write. We can use it for drawings, rangoli, all those things. So we can apply some functions on the real world entity. So any object is an abstract in the sense it will have its own characteristics and behavior. So it's a collection of characteristics. So the collection of characteristics, we cannot store it in a single row or column. So we need a specialized database which can handle object and classes based database entities. So in this module, we are going to discuss about what is the object and how the object can be stored in the table, and what are the different types of database systems available to store and process the object-based elements. So here we will discuss object and object-relational database concepts. So in this module 1, we are going to discuss the following topics: motivating example, structured data types, database design for RDBMS, object-relational database management system, and then we will study object-oriented database management system. Then we will study comparing the relational database management system with object-oriented database management system and object-relational database management system. So we have here object-based, we have three types of databases. Relational database management system, we'll call it as RDBMS. Then the second type is object-oriented database management system, we'll call it as OODBMS. Then object-relational database management system, we'll call it as ORDBMS. So these three things, if you know what is what and what is the main difference among them, then you can easily understand the entire concept. The introduction part. So here in our module 1, we have the topics like motivational example, structured data types, database design for ORDBMS, object-oriented database management system, comparing RDBMS, OODBMS, and ORDBMS. So for this module 1, we need 9 hours of time, and the course outcome is the first course outcome we can attain through this particular module, and the module is based on level 2 understanding level. So if you take the introduction part, database systems that were based on the object data model were known originally as object-oriented databases, but are now referred as object databases. We can say the OODBMS as object-oriented databases, or simply we can reduce one O, we can say object database management system, OODBMS. Databases are fundamental components in any software system. So if you take any software, we need to store, the system has to store, process, and it has to maintain a large amount of databases, because the processing is totally based on the database and the files what we are using. Without data, we cannot process any software project. So the database and the data belongs, places an important role. So we need to store, process, and we need to retrieve the data in a proper way. So to understand how to store, process, and retrieve the data, especially object-oriented data, through this module. Another reason for creation of object-oriented databases is the vast increase in the use of object-oriented programming languages for developing software applications. Nowadays, many of the projects are based on the object-oriented programming constructs, especially the Python-based components like PyCharm, Torch, and other, say the Java, VC++, C#. So everything is object-oriented database processing based, or they are all object-oriented languages. Nowadays, we are not using sequential languages like BASIC, C, C++, as well as other languages like COBOL, Fortran. So those languages are not used currently to program the real world, to solve the real world problems. So mostly we are using object-oriented languages for creating nowadays all the projects. So you need to understand what is object-oriented programming and how to store, process the huge amount of object-based databases. So the vast increase in the use of object-oriented programming languages made us to study and to create object-oriented database management systems. So before 10 years, there is no concept called unstructured data type or object-oriented databases. After started using C++, Java, and Python, we mostly started programming with object-oriented languages, and the data accessed and processed by the object-oriented programming languages are based on object types and based on relational ORDBMS type. So we need specialized packages which can handle object-oriented data. And if you take the relational database systems, normal DBMS or RDBMS can support only a small and fixed collection of data types. So by using normal Oracle tables or normal SQL, PL/SQL, we can process a small and fixed collection of data like integers, dates, string type, which were adequate for traditional application domains such as administrative data processing. So we can make use of the normal DBMS and RDBMS tables to perform the administrative work, say receive credits, debits, receivables, expenditures, like normal balance sheet say the BCom students you might have seen, they will be using in a notebook with a number of rows and columns. They will write down a serial number, description, credit, debit, date, credit, debit, balance, balance in hand. They use the words like liabilities and liabilities and they will have income and debit. So those kind of operations, we use database systems, especially to maintain the balance sheet, to maintain the daily expenditures, monthly expenditures, to create the reports on sales, especially in banking sector. They used the normal DBMS packages by using they used Oracle or SQL or Sybase, Dbase. They are the old database systems. So they will have FoxPro, Sybase, Dbase. Then they started using COBOL-based Y2K. When the Y2K problem came into picture, they started using the COBOL-based JCL, job control language, DB2, JCL, CACX. They used to call it as customer interface control system kits. And DB2 packages, especially in mainframe environment, they use COBOL 2 based database 2 databases to process all the administrative works in case of a share market as well as banking sector. But they can process normal data types like integers, dates, string type, variable type. That only they can handle. They cannot handle objects, audio data, video data, complete PDF file, complete XML file, CS2 files, TS2 files, CSV files. That and all cannot be processed by, those kind of data cannot be processed, stored by normal DBMS. In many application domains, however, much more complex kinds of data must be handled. So in a real world scenario, like video surveillance, video recording, online video surveillance, the security, cyber security field. So we are getting large amount of data in the form of audio images, video images, current live stream data that cannot be handled by normal SQL tables. To support such applications, the DBMS must support complex data types. So the normal DBMS table, RDBMS table cannot handle classes and objects. They cannot handle audio, video, images, or they cannot handle live stream data. They cannot support cloud as well as other advanced concepts. So we need a specialized application which can handle the latest real-time data. Object-oriented concepts have strongly influenced effort to enhance database support for complex data and lead to development of object database systems. So once the object-oriented programming come into picture, when we started using creating many applications based on object-oriented programming languages, we need specialized database systems which can handle object-oriented databases as well as object-relational databases, which can support unstructured data which are collected from social media as well as online video streams, satellite pictures, and other object-oriented data. So these are the motivating factors which made us to go for object-oriented database systems. So the motivational example is the real-time database constructs cannot be handled by traditional database relational database systems, and they can handle small and fixed amount of data. But nowadays we are getting live stream data and a huge amount of data is available. We are dealing with big data analytics. We are dealing with data warehousing and data mining concepts, and we are using machine learning and artificial intelligence concepts. Those kind of data cannot be handled by traditional DBMS systems. So we are going for object-oriented database management system, which can handle huge amount of audio, video, real-time, cloud-based data types. So the next idea behind the object-oriented databases is the object database systems have developed along two distinct paths. In object-oriented database, we have two different types of databases. The first type is called object-oriented database system. We'll call it as OODBMS. The second type is called object-relational database system. We'll call it as ORDBMS. So what is OODBMS and what is ORDBMS means? If you want to use more object-oriented programming language-based characteristics like friend functions, virtual functions, templates, or inheritance, base class, derived class, and the object overriding, overloading, polymorphism concepts, both in databases as well as in programming, we'll go for object-oriented database systems. Or just you want to process, store and process object-based databases, we'll go for object-relational database management system. So that is the main difference. Object-oriented database management system means we'll go for all the object-oriented programming characteristics like classes, objects, inheritance, polymorphism, friend functions, virtual functions, templates, annotations, extensions. Then we will go for object-oriented database system. Just you want to store and process objects in your database, we will go for object-relational database management system. So that is the main difference. The next topic is motivating example. So the new data types which are available are user-defined data types. Many of the data is we are not simply using the integers, characters, float, double in our databases. Many are user-defined. They are created by the users. They will have different types of fields. They will have different types of functions. So if it is user-defined, that cannot be handled by traditional database management system. And many of the data types are structured types. Structured types in the sense, I will have the set of attributes, and we will create structured members. Through the structured members, we will do the processing. And we started using inheritance concepts. So the inheritance concepts gives us an idea of reuse. We'll have the old database, which are created before 10 years before. Now we will add and delete additional fields. So if you take the banking sector databases, the fields and columns are same. So they use a customer name, first name, second name, last name, date of birth, address may change. Many of the fields are fixed fields. Now we started adding online account, passwords, and OTP, and mobile banking. So additional functions are coming to picture, but the old traditional fields are same. So in that case, the new functionalities, new options can be created by using derived classes, by making use of inheritance concepts. The same way, object identity. Each transaction will have its own identity. Each object will take its own instance. So the identity that can be maintained through the new data types. So we are getting new data types, which are user-defined data types, structured types, inheritance types, which are inherited from the old data types, and each object is having its own unique ID. So these are the new data types which are recently used in real-time applications. To handle these kind of data types, we need object-oriented database management system. So any doubt so far, what we discussed? Any doubt? So we started with what is object-oriented databases. Then we discussed what is object-oriented database, why we need object-oriented database, what is the motivating factor which makes us to go for object-oriented database. There are two types of database: object-oriented database, object-oriented database management system, and object-relational database management system. Both are having its own difference. And nowadays, in real-time environment, we are getting new types of databases and new types of data objects, which are different, which are user-defined one, structured one. They have the inheritance capability, and each object is having its own identity. So to handle this kind of features and this kind of new data types, we need specialized object database management systems.
Ma'am, could you explain the previous slide a bit more clearly, ma'am?
This one, no?
The types of database.
These are new data types, sir.
No, not that, ma'am. The previous. Yeah, that's.
Yeah. So in a object-oriented database system, we have two major database systems. One is OODBMS, or we will call it as OODBMS. Second one is ORDBMS. So we know the data types, that is, we know the database management system is having DBMS, RDBMS. They are traditional database management systems. So there we will have the tables. We will store the data in the tables. The tables will have rows and columns. In each row and each column, we will store some value. Those values will be of traditional types like integers. We have the basic data types, no? Integer, character, float, double, long, double, and along with that we are using character type, string type. So these are the major data types which can be stored and processed by using traditional database management system like DBMS and RDBMS. But if you want to store the data objects as data or the classes as data in your database management system, the objects and classes are they have its own attributes, collection of attributes and collection of functions. Each object is having its own. We will say the encapsulation, data hiding, abstract data type, classes and objects in the sense the abstract data type comes into picture. Class is an abstract data type where it has its own set of attributes and set of functions. A class cannot be a single atomic data. So if it is say serial number, only the serial numbers like 1, 2, 3. Nothing else we cannot store. We cannot store the float values, or we cannot store the alphabets, or we cannot store the string data type. But if you say objects, the objects are, it may depending upon the, if it is in student object, the object has to store student name, student registration number, department, 5 subjects, lab marks, internal marks. So each student object is having its collection of a bundle of data. A bundle of data storing in a column, adding, performing the transactions like adding the objects, deleting the objects, subtracting the objects, performing the various string operations, adding 2 strings or adding 2 objects. So I think in object-oriented programming, you might have studied operator overloading. So the operators plus and minus that can be applied on basic data types. Adding of 2 integers is possible, adding of 2 strings is possible, adding of 2 floating point numbers is possible. But if you have class student S1, S2, S3, adding of 2 student objects S1 plus S2, or subtracting 2 student objects S1 minus S2, performing multiplication on 2 student objects like S1 star S2 is not possible. But that we can perform the special operations by using operator overloading. We will write separate operator overloading function. Within the operator overloading function, the S1 object's name and the S2 object's name can be added. S1 object's marks and S2 students' marks can be added. Or if the objects S1 and S2 both belongs to the same students, second year marks and third year marks, we can add the marks of second year marks and third year marks. Then we can calculate the CGPA. So adding of 2 objects is possible through operator overloading. So the same way in tables, in database management system tables, if you want to perform the operations, say simply we are not storing the value in the tables. We are performing a lot of operations on the values which are stored in the tables. So we will be calculating credit, debit, balance, and other, we will be creating so many reports. We will create the loan details reports. Like that, we are performing a lot of transactions on the database tables. So if the data is in the form of objects, we need the object-oriented programming language constructs to perform the operations. In that case, we will go for object-oriented database management system, where we can perform operator overloading, front function, inheritance, virtual functions, those operations. If you go for object-oriented database management system. But simply you want to store the objects in your table, and you perform simple operations on the, database objects, we'll go for object-relational database management system, where we can store the objects and you can perform the normalization, first normal form, second normal form. You can avoid duplication, all those things with the help of object-relational database management system. If you want to go for pure OOPS concept, we'll go for OODBMS. If you simply use objects in your tables and you process the objects, you go for ORDBMS. I think you got the idea. Any doubts? Okay, our next topic is called binary large object. We will call it as BLOB. So binary large object in the sense, here the data is in the form of object. That too not a small object, it is a big object. Big object in the sense, the same, it may be in a table, you are storing a complete file. So the file may be an PDF file, or it may be an CSV file, or it may be an CSS file, or it may be an complete video lecture, or a complete movie of size 1 GB or 2 GB. So those kind of data is called binary large object. We will call it as BLOB. Is just a long stream of bytes. Here stream of bytes in the sense, we'll use the word stream along with the objects. I think you might have, while writing the C++ program, you will use the header file #include iostream.h. Stream in the sense, the live, say if you are capturing a video for 5 minutes, that is a live stream. If you are capturing our Zoom video class is recorded, so that is a live stream. Stream means collection, stream of flow of data. Okay, so it is just a long stream of bytes. So the size of the file may be in the form of KBs or MBs or GBs. So in general, if you are storing your USN number alone in the table, USN number of 10 digits or 8 digits, because it is an alphanumeric type, character type, each character needs 1 byte. So the base, say if your USN is, how many digits are there in your USN? Student USN? 19 BTR, CS. What is the size of your USN? 8 bytes, 8 bits, 10 bits. So how many characters are there in your student USN, Jain University?
10.
19 plus CS. Yeah, 10 digits. So to store your USN, we need only 10 bytes. But in the same rows and column, if you are storing the complete video lecture of today's class, it will be around 340 GB. Not 340 GB, 340 MB. So storing an USN number in a column and storing the video lecture in a column is having a lot of difference. Within the stream of data, there will be a number of pictures, a number of words, a number of other, say the video lecture with the gallery, with the video lecture with the comments, video lecture with audio only, video only, like that there are a number of values associated with the BLOB kind of data. So to handle the BLOB kind of data, we need a special packages or special database systems which can handle not only storing the value, BLOB value in the column. After that, we will perform so many operations on the value. Say we may be extracting only the first 10 seconds, or we may analyze the data, or we may try to extract the audio data, video data. So like that, we can perform a number of operations on the long stream of bytes. But if you are storing only your USN, the USN can be, we can check whether the student belongs to which batch, whether he belongs to CSE branch, or whether what is his roll number, whether he belongs to A session or B session. So those kind of data we can extract based on the USN. Say 19 BTR, so it means he is a 19 batch student. He may be in 6th semester. And because CS is there, the student belongs to CSE branch, and the roll number is 101. He may belongs to B section. So like that, we can get some knowledge and inferences. But if the large BLOB data is stored in the same column, we can perform a number of operations. We can do the process is totally different. So to handle this kind of live stream data, we need specialized databases. So which kind of database we can make use, and how it can be used in machine learning and artificial intelligence environment, that we can study in object-oriented databases. And if you take the second point, DBMS supports support consists of storing and retrieving BLOBs in such a manner that the user does not have to worry about the size of the BLOB. So the ORDBMS provides us an option to store BLOB. No need to worry about the size of the BLOB. It can be 1 GB, 2 GB, or it can be a small size also. And BLOB can span several pages. So it may, if it is an PDF file, it may go for 100 pages, 200 pages. Say your project report is stored as an object in the table. The BLOB may contain 250 pages or 500, or it may contain 50 pages. Each page may contain a number of diagrams, a number of paragraphs, and processing of the BLOB has to be done by the user's application program. So now after storing the data in the BLOB column, we can extract the 5th page alone, and then we can scan and analyze what is written in the 5th page of the report. And if you want to extract who is the author of the project report, that we can get it from the 1st page. And what is the title of the report, that also we can extract. How many pages are there, how many publications are done by the student. So everything can be accessed through the data stored in the BLOB. So our ORDBMS supports BLOB kind of databases, and we can process the BLOB kind of databases. And semantics of the data is heavily dependent on the host language. What do you mean by semantics? I think you might have heard the word syntax and semantics. What is semantics? We will say syntactic error, semantic error while executing the Java program or while executing the Python program. So syntax means while writing the statement, executable statement, we'll follow some syntax. Say if I am writing the for loop, I will use the keyword for within opening brackets and closing brackets. I will write I equal to 0, comma, semicolon, I less than 10, semicolon, I plus plus. So the brackets, semicolon, the keyword for, then opening brackets and closing brackets will have the else part. So that is syntax. The syntax means the rules and regulations that has to be followed while writing any executable programming language code. So the syntax will differ from one program to another program. Say if you write the same for loop in C, the syntax is different. If you write the same for loop in Java, the syntax is somewhat different. And if you write the same for loop in Python or C hash, the syntax differs depending upon the meaning. Literal meaning is same because in all languages like C, C++, Java, for loop means it is an iterative statement based on the initial condition to the end condition. It will repeat the statements for a number of times, and it can be a simple for loop or else if or it can be a simple for loop, or it may be a nested for loop. So like that we have different types. So syntax means the rules and regulations which has to be followed while creating any executable line. Semantics means the literal meaning associated with the statement. What purpose we are using? If you use the statement, what will happen? So the semantic of the data is heavily dependent on the host language, in which language we are writing the program, and the databases will have front end and back end. Front end we may use Python, back end we may use MySQL. The front end you may use Java, the back end you may use SQL or Oracle tables. So the database what we are using is heavily dependent on the which language is going to process your database. Then structured types and inheritance, there is no support in relational model. If you take the traditional RDBMS and Dbms, it will not support inheritance. Inheritance in the sense we have base class, we can create the new derived classes, parent class and child class. That is not possible. We have to modify the traditional DBMS table or RDBMS table. But if you go for object-oriented databases, we can create inherited tables. We can create inheritance and base class, derived class, child class, parent class, grandchild class. That is that is possible by using object-oriented relational database management system. So these are the additional features available if you go for ORDBMS and BLOB and ORDBMS. So any doubts so far? The next topic is manipulating the new kinds of data. So if you want to manipulate means if you want to perform any operation or if you want to apply some operations on the new kinds of data like ORDBMS provides user-defined methods. We can write our own user-defined methods. If you go with the traditional SQL, we need to make use of the same select, create, var class, select class. I think you might have studied in DBMS. Create table, insert into table, then modify table, update table. Then we will apply the condition class, select class, var class, complex relational activities, and we can truncate, update, modify. So those kind of typical structured query language statements will be applied on DBMS. But if you go for ORDBMS, we can create our own methods. We can create the user-defined methods what we are creating in Java and C++. The same way it supports for operators for structured data types. We can go for operator overloading concepts to add two objects, or operator overriding concept where we can override the base class functions can be overridden by the derived class functions. So that is possible if you go for ORDBMS. And operators for reference types. We can create the reference types by making use of, say, we'll create new types of operators where we can make plus operator to perform multiplication. I think you might have studied in object-oriented programming, polymorphism and function overloading, operator overloading. The operators can be overloaded. The typical operation of plus means wherever we use plus, it will perform addition only. But we can assign some additional responsibility to the plus operator to perform power operation, or the same plus operator can be redefined to perform minus process. So that is possible by the use of object-oriented relational database management system. So why we are going for ORDBMS means it provides user-defined methods. Our own user-defined methods can be created. Operators for structured types is possible, and operators for reference types is possible with the help of ORDBMS. And the same way, the traditional relational database systems offers limited flexibility in the data types available. So we have only fixed number of operators, say plus, minus, multiplication, division, modulus, and those are the typical arithmetic operators, relational operators, and logical operators. But if you go for OODBMS, we can create our own operators, and data is stored in tables, and the type of each field value is limited to a simple atomic type. So in normal DBMS table, the values in the table is atomic. Atomic means only one integer, only one string, or only one floating point number. Only one mark can be stored in a column, or only one student name can be written in a column in case of traditional DBMS tables. This is limited type systems can be extended in three main ways. So the traditional system can be extended by using three main ways. One is we can have our own user-defined abstract data types. We can have our own structured types, and we can have our own reference types. So if you want the user-defined data types and structured types, reference types, BLOB objects, and if you want to apply object-oriented concepts on the tables, we will go for OODBMS concepts. So to overcome all the drawbacks of traditional database systems, we are making use of object-oriented relational database systems by taking the advantage of object-oriented characteristics. So you will go through the concepts, what we discussed today. If you have any doubt, I will upload the material in the Google Classroom. If you have any doubt, ask me in the next class. Any doubt so far? Any doubt? So the thing is, you need to understand what are the features available in traditional DBMS, and you know very well. If you go for object-oriented DBMS, we have all the object-oriented. Nowadays we are using only the object-oriented programming languages because the programming is based on the real-life scenario. If you want to implement any real-life scenario, or if you want to implement any real-time project, we have to take consider the complete real-time project as object as it is. So we are using graphics, animation. So implementing graphics, animation, and animated videos, we need to implement everything. So we have to create a picture. We need to apply all the picture itself will have its own characteristics, attributes. How the nose, how the eyes will be, how the appearance, what is the color. We are creating a number of graphics images, graphical animated images. So those images, it's having its own, everything we have to fix about the object, that particular image. Then the image will be doing a number of activities. Say, for example, if you take the Dora, so the Dora picture is completely a different, the picture will get an appearance, we will get an imaginary picture in our mind. The Dora, how she will look like, and what are the things she is performing. She's having a small friend, and she's going for inventions. She's going to new places. She's having a number of tools. She's performing a number of activities, singing, dancing, jumping. So she's traveling in the forest. She's traveling the city. So everything, every scenario we need to create the background, framework, the various objects in the scene that should be created. So that is not possible with the help of, because each and every object, each and every scene is stored in the database. So that is not possible with the help of traditional tables or traditional languages. So we need to go for object-oriented languages and object-oriented tables. So in object-oriented, in the sense, we need to define the abstract data type. Then the abstract data type will have a number of attributes. So you are creating an imaginary character, and that character will have its own dressing, coloring, environment, everything. And that object will perform a number of activities. For each and every activity, we need to create a separate function. And the function will perform a number of activities, a number of processes in each scene. So like that, we have to think about any real life scenario. So with the help of traditional database, we cannot do any process. And with the help of object orientation only, object oriented properties only, we can inherit, we can reuse, we can have front functions, we can create virtual functions, we can create templates. The same template can have a number of the same template can be used by say every week we are getting a number of videos. So the next episode, next scene, the same template can be reused. So that is the advantage of using relational, object-oriented relational database management system. So you go through the slides. If you have any doubt, you ask in the next class. Okay, all of you answer your attendance in the chat box. So you pick who is the class representative? B session.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, A session.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, you please collect how many students they are going to come in physical mode, because I came to the class, nobody is there. Simply started taking class from the Zoom class in the classroom itself. Then 4 students came. So if the students are coming to the classroom, it will be, I will come to the class and I will take. If no students are coming, I can take the class from my cabin itself. So that's what. So you please collect the data. How many are going to come for the physical mode? How many are going to attend the classes for online mode? How long? Say today only 4 students. What about again afternoon we have one more class. Again we have class on Wednesday. So if you say clear picture, so that I can manage whether I can take in my laptop or we can take it in the classroom. So if it is my cabin, I can take the attendance. I have the attendance list. So that it will be easy for us. And today morning 5 minutes, 10 minutes wasted. waiting for the students. So you please collect ADBMS, how many students are going to attend physical mode, how many students in online mode, how long. So if you get the date and number of count, it will be easy for us. Anyhow, we need to submit and report also. How many students attended online? How many students attended offline? Okay. The class
Okay.
representative, please collect the data and send it to my WhatsApp number. Just to give me the count, or if possible, give me the name also. Write it in your paper also, no issues. Write down the names from A session, the A session representative, B session representative, who are all going to attend online, who are all going to attend offline. That is classroom. When from which date they can come. Online, how long they can attend online. Just I need the count or the name, just so that it will be easy for me to prepare the attendance and other things. Okay, you go through, today I will upload the PPT in Google Classroom. You go through the content. Next class onwards, we will be having a poll also, class poll also. Those marks also will be considered for calculating the internal assessment. Go through the material. If you have any doubt, please, if you have any doubt, ask me in the next class. All of you, I entered your attendance. All of you entered your attendance. You entered your attendance, you can leave the class. So I got some messages in the chat box regarding what is OODBMS. So that I will take. Anyhow, our module 1 is somewhat less. So I will take on separate PPT that will give you an idea about what is SQL, what are the operations we are performing in SQL, the various features like primary key, secondary key, reference types, and what is ORDBMS, how it is different, that we will discuss in detail. Okay, if all of you entered your attendance, you can leave the class. All of you entered. Shall I end the class now? We will end the class.